On the night of December 30th, 2000, a family of 4 was home in a quiet residential neighborhood in western Tokyo. A father, a mother, an 8-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old son. By midnight, all 4 of them were dead, stabbed, strangled, murdered inside their own home on New Year's Eve. But what happened next is what makes this case one of the most disturbing unsolved murders in history. The killer didn't leave. He stayed. He stayed in the house for hours, with 4 dead bodies around him. He ate ice cream from their refrigerator. He drank their barley tea. He sat down at their family computer and browsed the internet. He used their bathroom. He may have even taken a nap on their couch. When he finally left, he disappeared into the night and left behind more evidence than almost any killer in modern history. His DNA, his fingerprints, his blood, his clothing, sand from his bag traced to a desert in Nevada, feces in their toilet. And still, 26 years later, no one has ever been caught. This is the Setagaya family murder. Mikio Miyazawa was 44 years old. He worked as a systems engineer. His wife, Yasuko, was 41. They had 2 children, Niina, who was 8, and Rei, who was 6. They lived in a modest 2-story house in the Kamisoshigaya neighborhood of Setagaya Ward, in the western suburbs of Tokyo. It was a quiet, safe area. Tidy streets. Children's parks within walking distance. The kind of place families chose specifically because nothing bad ever happened there. Yasuko's mother, Haruko, lived in a house right next door. The Miyazawas were an ordinary family living an ordinary life. They had no enemies, no debts, no conflicts. They were nobody's target. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. On the night of December 30th, 2000, the Miyazawa family was home. It was the day before New Year's Eve, one of the most important holidays in Japan. The family had settled in for the evening. 6-year-old Rei was already asleep in his room on the 2nd floor. The rest of the family was downstairs. At some point between 11:30 at night and midnight, someone entered the house. The intruder climbed the fence at the rear of the property, stepped onto an air conditioning unit, and pulled the fly screen off the 2nd floor bathroom window. Then, he climbed inside. The killer went to Rei's room first. The 6-year-old boy was asleep in his bed. The killer strangled him with his bare hands. When Mikio heard the disturbance, he rushed upstairs. What followed was a violent struggle. Mikio fought the intruder, and he fought hard. He managed to injure the killer, drawing blood. But the killer had brought a sashimi knife. He stabbed Mikio multiple times, killing him. The knife broke during the attack. The killer then went to the kitchen, found a santoku knife, a common Japanese cooking knife, and returned. He used it on Yasuko and Niina. The mother and daughter were stabbed repeatedly. 8-year-old Niina suffered the same fate as her parents. All 4 members of the Miyazawa family were dead within approximately 30 minutes. The time was around midnight, and this is where the story stops making sense. Most killers flee. They run, they panic, they try to put as much distance as possible between themselves and what they've done. This killer did not. After murdering an entire family, a father, a mother, 2 children, he stayed in the house. For hours. With the bodies around him, he moved through the home as if he owned it. He opened the refrigerator. He ate 4 cups of ice cream. He ate melon. He drank 4 bottles of barley tea. He used their bathroom and left his feces in the toilet, unflushed. He treated his own injuries from the fight with Mikio, using first aid supplies he found in the house. He bandaged his wounds. And then, at 1:18 in the morning, he sat down at the family's computer and went online. At 1:18 a.m. on December 31st, 2000, the Miyazawa family computer was used. The killer sat at the desk, in a house with 4 dead bodies, and browsed the internet. Reports indicate he accessed several websites. The nature of what he looked at has been the subject of much speculation. Some reports say he attempted to purchase theater tickets. What is certain is that the computer activity placed him inside the house well over an hour after the last family member was killed. He was not in a rush. He was not panicking. He sat there and used the computer as if nothing had happened. Several reports also suggest the killer took a nap on the sofa in the second-floor living room, though investigators have no way to confirm this definitively. At some point before dawn, the killer finally left the house and vanished. At 10:40 in the morning on December 31st, 2000, Yasuko's mother Haruko arrived at the house from her home next door. She found the bodies of her daughter, her son-in-law, and her 2 grandchildren. The scene was horrific. Mikio lay in a pool of blood on the stairs. Yasuko and Niina were found on the first floor. Ray was still in his bed on the second floor. The house was in disarray. There were signs of a violent struggle. Blood was everywhere. But the refrigerator had been opened. Ice cream cups were scattered, the computer was on, and the killer's belongings were still in the house. He had left behind more evidence than almost any murderer in modern criminal history. What the killer left behind should have solved this case. His blood was found throughout the house, type A, which did not match any member of the Miyazawa family. DNA was extracted from the blood, from his feces, from surfaces he touched. His fingerprints were found on multiple objects. He left behind his hip bag. He left behind his clothing, including a shirt so rare that only 130 units had ever been manufactured. Police managed to track down only 12 of the buyers. He left behind a sashimi knife that had been purchased in Kanagawa Prefecture. He left his shoes, made in South Korea, marketed by the British company Slazenger. Inside the hip bag, investigators found trace amounts of sand. And when they analyzed that sand, they got a result no one expected. The sand found in the killer's hip bag came from 2 places. The first was a skate park in Japan. The second was the desert surrounding Edwards Air Force Base in California, in the Nevada desert region of the United States. This single piece of evidence opened up an entirely new dimension to the investigation. What was a murderer in suburban Tokyo doing with sand from a military installation in the American Southwest? Had he lived there? Visited? Was he connected to the military? Combined with the other evidence, a profile began to emerge. But it was a profile that didn't match anyone Japanese police could find. DNA analysis revealed that the killer was male. His maternal DNA indicated a mother of European descent, possibly from a southern European country near the Mediterranean or Adriatic Sea. His paternal DNA indicated a father of East Asian descent. He was possibly mixed race. He was approximately 170 centimeters tall, of thin build and right-handed. He had eaten string beans and sesame seeds in the day before the murders. His age was initially estimated between 15 and 35. In 2018, police revised this to 15 to 22 years old at the time of the murders. In 2025, they revised it again, estimating he was at least in his 30s. They had his DNA, his fingerprints, his blood type, his clothing, the sand in his bag, the food in his stomach. They knew more about this killer than almost any unknown suspect in history, and they could not find him. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department launched one of the largest investigations in Japanese history. Thousands of officers were involved. Millions of dollars were spent. Under what they called Operation Roller, police went door to door throughout the neighborhood, collecting fingerprints from local residents. They cross-referenced DNA databases. They tracked the shirt to its manufacturer. They traced the sand to its origin. They sent investigators to the Philippines after a handkerchief found at the scene was linked to wrapping techniques from communities in Ilocos and Isabela. In 2021, new technology allowed them to visually identify a person of interest who had purchased the same type of knife used in the murders, but his DNA did not match. He was ruled out. Lead after lead, across prefectures, across borders, across continents, and still nothing. For years after the murders, the Miyazawa house stood untouched, a silent monument to what happened inside it. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police preserved it as evidence, a crime scene frozen in time in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Neighbors walked past it every day. Children played in the park next door, the same park the killer likely used to access the property. In 2019, police announced the house would finally be demolished. It had deteriorated. The interior was falling apart. They said all evidence had already been collected, but the family and supporters appealed the decision. The case remained open. In 2010, the massive public attention around the Setagaya murders had helped push Japan to abolish the statute of limitations for crimes punishable by death. The killer can still be charged. The clock will never run out. He killed a father. He killed a mother. He killed an 8-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy. Then he sat down and ate their ice cream. He used their computer. He went to their bathroom. He may have slept on their couch. Then he left. He left behind his blood, his DNA, his fingerprints, his clothes, sand from a desert in California. Everything investigators would need to identify him. And in 26 years, with thousands of officers, millions of dollars, and some of the most detailed forensic evidence ever collected from a crime scene, no one has ever been arrested. No one has ever been charged. No one has ever been named. The Miyazawa family is still waiting for justice. And somewhere, the man who murdered them, who stayed in their home and ate from their refrigerator while their bodies lay around him, is still out there. If you want more cases like this, subscribe to Cold Vault.